Okay. Good evening, greetings from the Institute of Global Professional IGP. Greetings from the Institute of Global Professional IGP. Thank you all for joining us and staying with us today. An honorable Nansika. Today I'm your host for the evening. My name is Badhundash. I'm from Bangladesh. I'm proud to be associated with IGP. IGP is a social and as certified International Education and Training Institute. In last years, we already served 35 million plus certificates from 100 plus countries. IGP is internationally recognized and globally accredited. We are connected to more than 450 plus profession and 4,500 plus organizations. Institute of Global Professional is an education institute that provides social work globally recognized and affordable research student community resource providing holistic social work and education. We believe that it's not effective to increase one skill just by offering formal education. So we provide effective training and consultation to general professionals and all over the world. We distribute our services locally, nationally, internationally to student job seeker, job holder, and also for learner the respective campus location and distance learning platform. We are an occupational and dependable institute. IGP is one of the famous online institute from all over the world. Our vision is education is not a business product; it's a part of our human rights. Based on our vision, we are trying to reach all corners of the world for free webinars, seminar courses, award quiz competition, mentoring, and counseling, etc. On the other side, we are also trying to offer more than 100 premium services for free, like your own portfolio website, resume builder, cover letter, motivation letter, and one platform for gathering journals which can update all day. Kids learning game, website, free course, conversations, and many more. We help them empower you to learn to meet their expectation and dream and become highly skilled people. We implement all training program, webinar, and offline online courses for your learner by professional trainers, speaker, and coaches. Our sessions are conducted by globally renowned professionals to develop all kind of youth and to promote the education and personality. Speaking knowledge is crucial for the state of global professional. We believe that knowledge is love, light, and vision. So we try to understand the needs of today's generation and serve them with research and practice methods. We must have a genuine concern for the learner represent more diversity, growth, and innovation are required to lead a session with professionalism, passion, and integrity. IGP members are committed to offering effective best quality service and continual improvement so that individuals who seek information can improve their skill level and value. Before we move to the next, let me remind don't forget to share, tag, and mention your friend in the comment box. The support is very valuable for us. Thank you. Before we move to the next, let me remind don't forget to share, tag, and mention your friend in the comment box. The support is very valuable for us. Thank you. Dear IGP speaker participant and well wisher, at this moment, this is a very important message for you all. We change and design our website www.edioigp.com. On this website, we have surprise for everyone. Hope you will be benefited. We already launched our new website where you can find all our previous activities together with lots of new features. But one strong point is that without an account or login, you cannot enjoy our services. So create an account for once with profile information. Note that with profile information, you'll enjoy all feature. With mismatched data, you cannot do anything here. From now on, you have to participate in lakh quiz competition on our website. We replace that. You have to join directly on our website. Now you can check all of our previous webinars with verified certificate. Now it's easier and time on it because after the session, we will not provide you any code for certification. You have to take part in one exam. After that, if you pass, you will receive your certificate, otherwise not. But you can take part in an exam unlimited till you pass. If you're an IGP speaker, you can download all your previous certificate, speakership certificate. If you're a host of IGP, you can download the certificate of gratitude. If you're an online live quiz competition winner, you can download a certificate of participation. If you're selected for lifetime membership, then you can download a certificate of lifetime membership easily. Besides this, if you participate in an award function which organized from my support with IGP, you can download that also. You can instead prepare and download any definition certificate from our website within a minute. Certificate of global professional membership, certificate of global interest in the pandemic, certificate of active knowledge, certificate of social activities in the pandemic, certificate achievement IGP knowledge engagement 2020, 2021, and 2022. Certificate of participation webinar series 1, authentic assessment in teaching learning, certificate of participation webinar series 2, teaching English as a foreign language and assessment, certificate of participation webinar series 3, digital classroom engagement tools, certificate of participation webinar series for the new trend in education, certificate of participation webinar series 5, happy skilling, martial leadership and managerial skills, certificate of participation webinar series 6, trend and innovation in mathematics education, certificate of participation webinar series 7, research comprehension approach, certificate of participation webinar series 8. Art in Teaching a special program in the Art Certificate of Participation Webinar Series 9, 21st Century Touring Teaching Mathematics Certificate of IGP Corporate Ambassador, Certificate of IGP Campus Ambassador, which you can prepare and download within a minute. From now on, you can participate in 1,000 plus international level quiz with verified certificate. Teaching tips for teacher, health tips for parents, health tips for teachers, gamification tools for teacher. You can join IGP alumni. You can check out our previous payment services website for free and many more. Dear IGP, well wisher, we promise to receive the lack of technical problem. We're late sending you on time. This is a great opportunity to collect your previous schedule. It's soft all issue from our website. Now you can enroll, reset password, everything. You can check out this for all webinar details. It's a cordial request to check all button and pages on our website. You like and still be benefit. Thank you, but note that without an account or logged in, you cannot enjoy our services. At present, we are going to start our 1947 webinar, which name is Path of Overcoming Anxiety, and today our speaker name is Rania Lampau. She is from Greece. Before I hand over this to our speaker, I must share a little bit about her. Ministry of Education and Regulation Affairs, Greece, Global Education author, speaker, research, global peace ambassador, IGP director, Greece. Now, very important moment for me to invite our speaker to IGP with her presentation. Now, very important moment for me to invite our speaker to IGP with her presentation. Hello, ma'am. Good evening. Ma'am, I can't hear you. Your mic is mute.
Okay, warm greetings from Greece. I'm very delighted and very honored to be invited today for this webinar. I would like to extend my heartiest congratulations to IGP for the incredible work that you're doing every day and for promoting quality education. And I'm very glad to be a part of this. Thank you very much.
Ma'am, please present your presentation.
Yes, first I would like to introduce myself. I'm a global educator, STEM instructor. I'm working at the Greek Ministry of Education at the Greek Astronomy Space Company. Now we'll share my presentation. And is it visible, my presentation? Is it visible now?
Yes, ma'am, the presentation is visible.
Can you see also the change of slides? Can you see the change of slides?
Yes, ma'am, everything is fine.
Okay. Thank you very much. Okay, our topic today will be pathways to overcoming anxiety. Why? Because actually anxiety is everywhere, and it already has been everywhere. But in the last several years, it has come to dominate our lives in a way that it perhaps never has. Because now we are currently experiencing more stress than we had in previous times in history. And it is this stress that actually explains the increased incidence of anxiety disorders. So while it can be said that human beings have always had to deal with stressful societal conditions, wars or famines, or depression, economic depression, things like that, there are three actually reasons we could say for suggesting that the overall stress level is particularly highly at this present moment. Um, First, our environment and social order have changed more in the last 30 years than they have in the previous 300 years. Why? Because digital information technology has changed our lives drastically in less than 20 years. So the increased pace of modern society and the increased rate of technological change have deprived people of adequate time to adjust to these changes. This is the first reason. Second reason is there are actually many increasing uncertainties about the future of all of our lives. Serious problems like overpopulation, income inequality, global terrorism, proliferation of weapons of mass destruction, things like this, and even artificial intelligence, which has raised many debates, many questions. Um, and finally, we could say that all these future prospects for the world's environment are seriously in question, as a majority of scientists believe that we have already reached a tipping point for extreme weather events, for climate change, for example, and loss of biodiversity or destruction of natural habitats. And now with artificial intelligence, also the human species is threatened. So all these problems, when a society becomes more and more anxious and uncertain, this shows up as an increased incidence of anxiety disorders in a population. Another point is that cultural values nowadays are unclear. So we lack a consistent, externally sanctioned set of values, which are usually prescribed by society, by government, by religion. And this leaves, we could say, a vacuum in which people are left to fend for themselves. So faced with all these inconsistent worldviews and standards presented by political divisions, by hundreds of channels of televisions, media, multiple social media platforms, we must learn how to cope with the responsibility of creating our own meaning and our own moral order. So all these factors make it difficult actually for individuals in modern society to experience a sense of stability or consistency in their lives. So anxiety disorders, we could say, that are simply one outcome of a diminished ability to cope with this resulting stress, as are addictive disorders or depression and all these things. Our approach today will be holistic. It will be holistic because we suggest interventions that will affect our life on many levels, behavior, feelings, mind, their personal relations, self-esteem, spirituality. Because when I present usually mental health issues, I avoid talking about medicalization. Why? Because as we're going to see, the causes of anxiety disorders are usually multiple. There is not one cause. This means that medication is not something which is sufficient. We need to adopt a comprehensive approach, integrated approach, which embraces all the levels of the human being, as I said before. So we're going to see some strategies about how to handle, for instance, panic attacks, how to counter unhelpful self-talk and mistaken beliefs. And of course, this, given the complexity of the situation of contemporary society and the lack, as I said before, of prescribed set of values, we needed to focus more on how we can work on ourselves. This is very important. So I'm also a researcher in cognitive neuroscience in education, and it's interesting to see the anatomy and the science of anxiety. Actually, neuroscience involves the study of the development, structure, and function of the nervous system, including the brain. In order to explain the neuroscience of anxiety, we need actually to provide us with a concise description of the anatomy of the brain, especially of the cortex and the amygdala. Here you can see the cortex, amygdala, and thalamus, so having a grasp of how these important regions of the brain operate and the ways in which they relate to one another. This can help us understand what happens when the cortex or amygdala overreact or create anxiety. The basic knowledge of neuroscience will provide us with insight into how we can actually rewire our brain to resist anxiety. The cortex pathway is very important. And here how is depicted the anxious brain. So the cortex is the source, we could say, of many of the human race's most impressive abilities. These abilities also result in the cortex being capable of creating a great deal of anxiety at the same time. So the cerebral cortex in humans, we can see that the cortex is larger and has more developed abilities than those of other animals. It's divided in two halves. The cortex is the left hemisphere and the right hemisphere. And it's also divided into different sections called lobes that have different functions, such as processing vision, hearing, and other sensory information, and putting it together to allow to perceive the world. So the cortex pathway to anxiety begins with our sense organs, or our eyes, our ears, our nose, or our taste, even our skin, or our sources of information about the world. All of our knowledge of the world has come through our sense organs and has been interpreted by different parts of our cortex. So when information comes in through our sense organs, it is directed to the thalamus, which is like the grand central station, we could say, of the brain. The thalamus is a central relay station that sends signals from our eyes, from our ears, and so on to the cortex. So when information comes into the thalamus, it's sent out to various lobes to be processed and interpreted. Then the information travels to other parts of the brain, including the frontal lobes, which are located behind the forehead, where information is put together so that we can perceive and understand the world. So we could see how this is related to anxiety. Actually, the frontal lobes are said to have what we call executive functions, meaning that they are aware of supervision of many brain processes occurs. The frontal lobes help us anticipate. It's like predicting, we could say, the results of situations, plan our actions, initiate responses, and use feedback from the world to stop or change our behaviors. Unfortunately, these impressive capabilities also lay the groundwork for anxiety to develop. So the cortex pathway is often a source of anxiety because the frontal lobes anticipate and interpret situations. Anticipation interpretations often lead to anxiety. Anticipation can lead to worry also. I'm going to see about this later. Because actually of our highly developed frontal lobes, some humans have the ability to predict future events and imagine the consequences. But this usually causes worry, these people. So we could see that worry is an outgrowth of anticipation of negative outcomes in situation. It's a cortex-based process that creates thoughts and images that actually provoke a great deal of fear and anxiety. Here you can see what happens if there is a stimuli of anxiety. What are the reactions in our body? There is stress hormone release, there is racing heartbeat, fight, flight or fright response, and digestion shutdown, and all these consequences. So prefrontal cortex is involved in this. Anterior cingulate cortex, because amplifies fear signals from the amygdala, and 100% responsible amygdala also because it's responsible for responses to fearful stimuli. Know that the amygdala is a region in the brain which causes the fear. The fear is here in this place which is called amygdala. So we could say that what is anxiety? Anxiety is like a distorted lens of our reality through which we view the world. Our anxiety lens they can filter out rays of hope, block our view of possible outcomes, blur anything positive, bring the negative into sharp focus, and magnify any kind of threat in our lives. So usually we know we can identify misappraisal. Misappraisal is the inaccurate or distorted assessment of danger or threat. When we consistently overestimate the level of threat we're facing, then we're setting up for chronic anxiety. So usually the experts say that all misappraisals of threat arise from very negative thinking patterns or habits of perception that distort reality. What are these three? Negative predictions, negative focus, and problem magnification. We're going to explore some of these cognitive distortions. First of all, mind reading. You assume that you know, for instance, when people think without having sufficient evidence of their thoughts. You say, for instance, he thinks I'm a loser. So this is called mind reading, and it's automatic thought distortion. The second one, fortune telling. You predict the future negatively. You say that things will get worse or there is danger ahead. You say, I won't succeed to the exams. I will fail the exams, or I won't get this job. Catastrophizing, you believe that what will happen will be so awful that you won't be able to handle it. Another one here that I forgot to write here is labeling. When you assign negative characteristics to yourself and others, you say, I'm not a good person, or I'm aggressive person, things like that. This is labeling. Discounting positives. You write off the positive things you others do as trivial. This is not a good option. Negative filtering, we focus almost exclusively on the negatives and seldom notice the positives. I think this is something that majority of us are doing. Overgeneralize, we perceive a global pattern of negatives on the basis of a single incident. We go beyond one experience and we generalize to a pattern that characterizes our life. You say, for example, this always happens to me. I'm failing many times. So phrases like this. When you overgeneralize and always this creates patterns that are finally become deep-rooted in your brain. Dichotomous thinking, you view events or people in all or nothing terms. You are either a winner or a loser. Blaming, you focus on another person as the source of your negative feelings, so you refuse to take responsibility for changing yourself. Unfair comparisons, you focus on the idea that you could have done better in the past rather than on what you can do better now. Regret orientation also, and what if you keep asking yourself what if something happens and you refuse to be satisfied with any of the answers. So we could say that anxiety is a habit loop. When we talk about anxiety is this feeling of worry, of nervousness, or at least typically it's about an imminent event or something with an uncertain outcome. When uncertainty comes, we get anxious and start scratching and say, do something. We say internally, do something about it. So stress or anxiety becomes the trigger that urges our brain to try to figure out what to do. That means it enacts a particular behavior. And if our brain comes up with something that feels like a solution, then we get the reward of feeling less anxious. So trigger, stress or anxiety behavior, go find a solution and find a solution. Sometimes this has a reward, as I said before. Anxiety gets perpetuated as a negatively reinforced habit loop. Anxiety actually can trigger worry. Because what is worry? Worry is this chain of thoughts and images, negatively affect-laden and relatively uncontrollable, representing an attempt to engage in mental problem solving on an issue with an uncertain outcome. So when a worry gets triggered by a negative emotion, then it can also be reinforced as a way to avoid an emotion which is unpleasant. For instance, we have a negative thought, a trigger. This provokes worry. A result is trying to avoid this or get distracted. So the result is become more and more anxious, feel more anxious. This mental behavior of worry has to happen only a few times before our brain gets in the habit of trying it every time we are anxious. But you know, how often do we come up with a solution that fixes the problem? And how much does worry itself actually help us think creatively or problem solve? So worry, we could say worry that pushes the panic button that gets us running around trying anything to get the anxiety to go away. So if the worried mind doesn't come up with solutions, worry triggers anxiety, which triggers more worry, and so on. That's why we talk about the habit loop. If worry is triggered by anxiety, maybe there might not something specific to worry about. That's often what is happening very often. But you know that when this habit loop is very hard to break, if you don't realize that your worry and anxiety are both pushing your head underwater in their attempt to keep themselves from drowning. If you had, for instance, tendency to worry, you can probably map these habit loops out in your own life to see how this plays out for you. Mapping out habit loops is only the first step we're going to see in working with anxiety. And of course, we need evidence-based interventions and evidence-based treatments about this. For instance, there are people who feel anxiety and then they start drinking. So trigger is anxiety, behavior is start drinking, and reward is for them to feel intoxicated, to try to forget and numbing. So many people will struggle with anxiety, drink alcohol, for instance, to alleviate these feelings. So this, I think that these people, they don't know how their minds work. So it's very important to see and understand their habit loops. It's not easy, but if you achieve this, it's try to see the light and illuminate the black box on our brain, on our mind. So what is the nature of anxiety? Actually, anxiety affects our whole being because it embraces, as I said before, physiological, behavioral, and psychological level at once. On a physiological level, it can include body reactions such as rapid heartbeat, muscle tension, dry mouth, or sweating. On a behavioral level, it can sabotage our ability to act, express ourselves, or deal with everyday situations. And psychologically, anxiety is a state of apprehension and uneasiness. In its most extreme form, it can cause us to feel detached from ourselves and even fearful of dying or going crazy. If our anxiety arises only in response to a specific situation, this is called situational anxiety. Or phobic anxiety. Situational anxiety is different from everyday fear because it tends to be out of proportion, means it's not realistic. And this situational anxiety becomes phobic when we actually start to avoid the situation. So what is phobic anxiety? Phobic anxiety is this situational anxiety that includes persistent avoidance of the situation. So if we apply, for instance, a recovery program from an anxiety disorder, this program must intervene at these three levels: reduce physiological reactivity, try to eliminate avoidance behavior, change subjective interpretations of what we said before, self-talk, which perpetuate the state of worry. And don't forget that anxiety can appear in different forms at different levels of intensity. It can range in severity and is when anxiety is not connected with any particular situation, then we say that it comes out of the blue. This is called free-floating anxiety, or in most severe instances, a spontaneous panic attack. In this case, we have a shortness of breath, we have heart palpitations, trembling or shaking, sweating, and nausea, and symptoms like this. So what now is the difference between anxiety and anxiety disorders? Anxiety is a part of life that we cannot avoid. I think it's inevitable. It's important to realize that there are many situations that come up in our everyday life which it is appropriate and reasonable to react with some anxiety. So it's something normal in our lives. If you don't feel any anxiety to everyday challenges involving that could have a potential loss or failure, something would be wrong. On the other hand, anxiety disorders are distinguished from everyday normal anxiety in that they would involve anxiety which is more intense. The panic attacks, for instance, are more intense, or they last longer, or they lead to phobias that interfere with our life. If we wanted to search for criteria for diagnosing specific anxiety disorders have been established by the American Psychiatric Association. They are listed in what we call a diagnostic manual used by mental health professionals, DSM, DSM-5 now. And don't forget also that there is a co-occurrence usually of anxiety disorders. Many people are dealing with more than one anxiety disorder usually. This mentioned before, the DSM also provides with this questionnaire, self-diagnosis questionnaire, that actually helps us identify which particular anxiety disorder we maybe are dealing with. So it's a sample that you can see, kind of questions that you can explore. So what are the causes usually of anxiety disorder? I mentioned before, there is no one cause. This is a complex problem, a multifaceted and multi-layered issue. The symptoms of anxiety disorders often seem irrational and sometimes inexplicable. You say, many times we say why, but usually we before considering in detail all the various causes of anxiety disorders, we need to have in mind that, as I said before, there are usually more than one causes, and also that even if we learn about the causes, doesn't mean that we can handle it. Because I said before, there are many strategies that we needed to adopt in order to overcome the situations. So anxiety problems actually function on numerous different levels. We talk about heredity, biology, family background, conditional recent stressors, or self-talk, or personal belief system, and ability to express feelings. Long-term predisposing causes have to do with heredity, said before, childhood circumstances. For instance, your parents communicated very cautious view of the world, or our parents were overly critical in your childhood and set of excessively high standards. Emotional security dependence, there's also maybe your parents suppress your opinion, your expression of feelings and opinions, and cumulative stress over time. Another set of causes, what we call biological causes, that has to do with physiology of panic attacks, generalized anxiety, obsessive compulsive disorder, and medical conditions that can cause panic attacks or anxiety. Short-term triggering causes are actually stressors that precipitate panic attacks. That could be a significant personal loss, that could be a life change, a situation, a stimulus, or drugs. That could be conditioning the origin of phobias and post-traumatic stress disorder, also trauma, which are very difficult to handle. Maintaining causes, it's interesting to see what is maintaining causes. It's those anxiety disorders which tend to keep going because they involve ways of thinking, of feeling, and coping that serve to perpetuate anxiety, panic, or phobias. We can mention some of them. Avoidance of phobic situations, reliance on safety behaviors or anxious self-talk, mistaken beliefs, withheld feelings, lack of assertiveness, lack of self-nurturing skills. That would be also muscle tension, stimulants and other dietary factors, high stress lifestyle, low self-esteem, lack of meaning or sense of purpose. So all these causes are interesting. And the second one I selected here to analyze more, it's reliance on safety behaviors. What is safety behaviors? As you see here in the photo, safety behaviors is things that you think will make you safer, but they actually don't. They just reinforce your anxiety. For instance, your preparation, you have, for instance, an exam, and you spend excessive time over preparing for it, and this leads to anticipatory anxiety, as we say, anxiety ahead of somewhat demanding situation that makes us miserable for several days before the actual event. Reassurance seeking, for instance, your heart is beating unusually hard or fear because you have been under excessive stress for the past 2 days. For insurance, for instance, you make an appointment with your doctor, etc. You over check. This has to do also with usually with medical situations. When you try always to be perfect, perfectionism, it's something which inevitably leads to anxiety disorders. Over reliance also on a support person is another thing. And rituals before you face a demand situation, you may try to usually to cope anxiety with a ritual. For instance, some people say pray for time or taking alone a special security subject and things like that. So when we wanted to reduce reliance on safety behaviors, there's this kind of guidelines. First, we notice that we have to notice that we're engaging safety behavior in order to protect ourselves. Try to expose rather than oppose. The key to overcoming safety behaviors is that you need to accept the situation and your ability to tolerate discomfort. And how to cope also rely on your most helpful coping strategies to move through exposure to an uncomfortable situation, tolerate it. We're going to explore all this, but before we need to clarify some types of anxiety. Panic disorder, as mentioned before, is characterized by sudden episodes of acute apprehension or intense fear that occur out of the blue, usually without any apparent cause. This could cause can cause chest pain, for instance, or discomfort, fear gone crazy, or losing control, dizziness, unsteadiness, faintness, shortness of breath, trembling or shaking. And agoraphobia, it means a fear of open spaces. However, the essence of agoraphobia is a fear of panic attacks usually. So if you suffer from agoraphobia, you're afraid of being in situations from which escape may be difficult to handle. Social anxiety disorder, which is also known as social phobia, is one of the most common anxiety disorders because it involves fear of embarrassment or humiliation in situations where you are exposed to the scrutiny of others, so you must perform. And this fear is much stronger than the normal anxiety people experience in social or performance situations. So this is something it's very common. And there's another type we call specific phobia. This typically involves a strong fear and avoidance of one particular type of object or situation. There are no spontaneous panic attacks. There is no fear of panic attacks as in agoraphobia, for instance. There is also no fear of humiliation or embarrassment social situation as in social phobia. With specific phobia, fear is always out of proportion to the realistic danger posed by the object or situation. It's usually about irrationalities. But even if we recognize these irrationalities, a specific phobia can cause us considerable anxiety. That would be an animal phobia that include fear, avoidance of snakes, for instance, of bats, of dogs or bears, and many other elevator phobia, for instance, or acrophobia. When you have fear of the height. Me personally, for instance, I suffer from acrophobia, airplane phobia. All these belong to this category of specific phobia. Generalized anxiety disorder is characterized actually by chronic anxiety that persists for at least 6 months, but it's accompanied by panic attacks, phobias, or obsessions. You experience persistent anxiety or worry about worry, but without, we could say, the complicating features of other anxiety disorders. this has, when we talk about generalized anxiety disorder, we talk about symptoms. This has to do with difficulty concentrating, restlessness, irritability, muscle tightness, difficulties with sleep, difficulty controlling worrying, and this is associated with physical symptoms such as tension, headaches, high blood pressure, insomnia, and even osteoporosis. Obsessive compulsive disorder. I think during the COVID pandemic, this was the rates of this disorder were very high because many people who wanted to wash their hands, for instance, hundreds of times within a day. This is in the DSM, as mentioned before, DSM-5. Obsessive compulsive disorder is described in a separate chapter on its own, apart from other anxiety disorder. It is listed with other obsessive compulsive spectrum disorders, such as body dysmorphic disorder, which is this distorted perception of one's body, or trichotillomania, hair pulling disorder, hoarding disorder, excoriation, substance medication. This normally stand that what are obsessions? Obsessions are those recurring ideas, thoughts or images or impulses that seem senseless, but however continue to intrude into our mind. Common examples could include recurring images of violence, thoughts of doing violence to someone else, fears of leaning on our lights on stove, and things like that. Obsessive spectrum disorders that I mentioned before, and this has to do with body dysmorphic disorder that I mentioned, excoriation, recurrent skin picking, and trichotillomania, recurring pulling out of our hair. Trauma and stress-related disorders. As I mentioned before, in the case of obsessive compulsive disorder, DSM-5 presents a post-traumatic stress disorder in a chapter on its own. This includes several other stress-related problems, and when these symptoms persist past 1 month, usually a diagnosis of post-traumatic stress disorder is deemed appropriate. This is related to post-traumatic also stress disorder, is a development of disabling psychological symptoms following a traumatic event. It was first identified during the First World War, when soldiers were observed to suffer from chronic anxiety, nightmares, flashbacks for weeks, months, and even years following combat. This condition came to be known as shell shock. Post-traumatic stress disorder can occur in anyone in the wake of a severe trauma outside the normal range of human experience. And these traumas could produce intense fear, terror, feelings of helplessness in someone, and include, for instance, that could be from natural disaster, from a fire, earthquake, serious accidents like car train crash, it could be from other rape or other violent crime against us or immediate family. And also, if we observe someone, observation of someone suffering a severe trauma can be sufficient enough to induce a post-traumatic stress disorder. Anxiety disorder due to another medical condition, and numerous types of these conditions can cause anxiety. It could be endocrine conditions, cardiovascular, for instance, conditions, metabolic conditions, and neurological conditions, and substance-induced anxiety disorder. This has to do with drugs or abuse and situations like this. So if we talk about, we said before about the habit loop. So we need to recognize habit loops. Recognize our habit loops and see the different components clearly. Trigger, I mentioned before, behavior and result. So the first step is about recognizing our habit loops and see these components clearly. I mentioned before about the reward, but the reward happens if we find solution. Finding solution is not usually the case. So then we have this sim trigger behavior result and not reward. So we need to map out these three components: trigger, behavior, result. Accept these habit loops and see what clarity this happens. So, of course, we don't worry about changing them yet. We learn actually how our mind works. It's the first step in this change. And now we are coming to our recovery, a comprehensive approach to recovery program, recovery plan. So I mentioned before that there are many types of factors which are contributing which are leading to anxiety disorders. Heredity, I mentioned about physiological imbalances in the brain, childhood deprivation, faulty parenting, cumulative effect of stress over time. All this can lead to anxiety disorders, agoraphobia, manic attacks, and all this, I mentioned before, this phenomenon is multifaceted. These factors can operate at a level of our body. I mentioned before that could be muscle tension or shallow breathing or poor nutrition, emotions also, emotional level, wakeful feelings or behavior, avoidance of phobic situations, or mind, anxious self-talk, and what we call whole self level, self-esteem, low esteem that could be or lack of self-nurturing skills. And if the causes of anxiety disorders are so varied, of course, then only an effective approach, an adequate approach to recovery needs to be holistic, as I said before, and comprehensive. This is the basic philosophy that I'm trying to highlight today. It means, of course, we don't exclude medication, but what I'm trying to say that this kind of mental health issues are complex, and we need to take into consideration all these levels we can see here: physical, emotional, behavioral, mental, whole self, existential, and spiritual level. This addresses the full range of factors contributing to these conditions. So, if we talk about now coping strategies, I think is the most interesting part. Usually, we talk about particular skills in coping that could be relaxation techniques such as muscle relaxation, visualization, or meditation. Good nutritional habits, countering negative self-talk, or using affirmations to counter mistaken beliefs. If, for instance, we have phobias, we can use additional strategies and we can increment real life exposure. These strategies include, as we can see here, for instance, we talk about relaxation and breathing techniques, guided visualizations. Many people enjoy listening to guided visualization in order to relax. It could be passive muscle relaxation. Effort is required for this. We simply lie down, close your eyes, and listen to ACT or download from your device, probably at the same time every day. Meditation is very important from the time we are awake until we go to bed. We all know that we are engaged in external activities, but we need time for meditation. And do it with the right way. Yoga, which means, the word means yoke or unify. So yoga is involved with promoting unity of mind, body, and spirit. And this system usually includes ethical precepts in vegetarian diet, specific breathing exercises, concentration practices, deep meditation, mentioned before. Yoga postures provide a very effective means to cope with stress and to increase fitness, flexibility, relaxation. And of course, calming music, because music has often been called as the language of the soul. So relaxing music can help us to settle down into a place of serenity deep within, and help us to uplift our mood and feel relaxed. Downtime is what is this? Is time off from work. when we give our time up from work or other responsibilities, when we give ourselves the opportunity to rest and replenish our energy. So without periods of downtime, any stress we experience while dealing with work or other responsibilities tend to become cumulative. When we talk about downtime, there are some kinds of this. It has to do with rest time, with recreation time, and relationship time. So give time, dedicate time to friendship and relationships, healthy relationships. Time management is another strategy that has to do with stress. I know it's not easy. Me too, personally. I'm working on it. It's not easy for me too to manage my time. Um, This describes the way in which we organize or structure our daily activities over time, and ineffective time management can lead to stress, anxiety, to burnout, and eventually illness. On the other hand, effective time management will allow us more time for this, and I said before, for the three kinds of downtime: rest time, recreation time, and relationship time. How this could happen? First of all, has to do with prioritization. Prioritization means clarify what are your priorities, what are your priority tasks. The second one is delegation. You can, when you let someone else take care of your task or your activities. Well, for instance, one activity which has a lower priority for you, you can delegate another one to do it for you. It's not a weakness to ask for help. Allow extra time for yourself because perfectionism, as I said before, is always a trap. So allow to extra time for you. It's very important. Perfectionism means setting your standards expectations too high. Means that you don't allow potential mistakes, and this provokes frustration, delays, and limitations. So perfectionism can keep us behind. So let go of perfectionism is something which is a fundamental attitude shift. Try to overcome procrastination because procrastination is always self-defeating when you leave yourself too little time. Whether you're preparing for exam or preparing to go to work, putting off the inevitable usually leaves us too little time. So without preparing for an exam or preparing to go to work, putting off the inevitable leaves us stressed in the end. And something that I know is difficult if we want to please everyone and we are not used to say no. This usually also causes problems in our schedule because we are tied up with so many responsibilities, and if we say always yes to all of the other proposals, to say yes to our friends because we want to show a nice character or we want to please everyone, this is not good for our mental health. So physical exercise, I forgot to mention before, it's one important coping strategy, and what we call mindfulness. Cultivate mindfulness. Its right attitude is a mindset or mental stance that you bring to meditation. So such an attitude takes time and commitment to develop. The practice of meditation helps us learn the right attitude. So right technique involves learning specific methods of sitting, of focusing your awareness that facilitate meditation. So cultivating mindfulness is a process of making a fundamental shift in your relationship with your own inner experience. And it's something which actually develops a non-judgmental inner observer within ourselves that enables us to simply witness rather than react to the ups and downs of everyday life. The right attitude I mentioned before, and in order to observe your immediate ongoing experience without any judgment and preconceptions or projections, this is what we call beginner's mind. So mindfulness has to do with no striving. Almost everything you do during the day is likely to be goal-directed. So meditation is one thing that is not. No striving is important. Acceptance, also non-judgment. Acceptance is the opposite of striving, and no judgment is an important prerequisite for acceptance. When you pay attention to your ongoing experience through the day, you will notice that you frequently judge things. So these judgments are based on your personal values and your standards, what is good and bad. So if you doubt about this, we can try taking some 5 minutes to notice how many things you judge during the short time interval. Of course, patience is needed and let go commitment and cultivate self-discipline. Also, if we talk about what are the necessary requirements in order to achieve all this, to achieve better results in coping with anxiety, is first of all to be responsible for this. Taking responsibility means that you don't blame anyone else for your difficulties. It means also that you don't blame yourself. Take a distance, and that's why we said that mindfulness helps keep a distance. So this is an interesting technique. Make a commitment to yourself to follow. Be motivated also. Motivation is also very important. Do you feel truly motivated to change? This is a great question. If you're willing to take risks, and if how you define or you visualize your goals for recovery. We mentioned before about the guiding visualization, how important it is. For each of the disorders I mentioned before, there are some current treatments. For instance, panic disorder, we use panic control therapy. So identifying, for instance, and eliminate catastrophic thoughts such as I'm trapped, that tend to trigger panic attacks, try to control this. They use relaxation trainings, or what we call interoceptive exposure. What is this? Practicing voluntary exposure to the bodily symptoms of panic, for instance, rapid heartbeat or shortness of breath or dizziness. Some symptoms are created deliberately, usually in the therapist's office. For example, dizziness may induced by spinning in a chair or rapid heartbeat by running up and down stairs. Repeated exposure to unpleasant bodily symptoms promote the process of desensitization, which basically means getting less sensitive. So getting more used to the symptoms to the point that they no longer frighten you. It's one of the techniques, actually a cognitive behavioral technique. If we talk about agoraphobia, this also includes relaxation technique, panic control therapy, interoceptive exposure, I mentioned before. Exposure means that we face or expose ourselves to a feared situation. Cognitive therapy. The aim of this therapy is to help us replace exaggerated, fearful thinking about panic and phobias with more realistic and supportive mental habits. So we learn how to identify, to challenge, and replace counterproductive thoughts with constructive ones. Assertiveness training, group therapy also, treatment for agoraphobia can be done very effectively in a group setting, and it's very effective. About social phobia, we use also exposure, social skills training, assertiveness training, and for specific phobia, current treatment is about relaxation technique, also cognitive therapy, and very interesting, we use also virtual reality exposure therapy. Virtual reality is usually in a small number of settings with appropriate technology. Specific phobias have been treated with virtual reality exposure therapy, which usually use specific program equipment with large screens to simulate phobic situations such as spiders or heights of line speaking in public. And as with real life exposure, patients are exposed to highly detailed hierarchy phobic scenes that utilize visual, auditory, and even tactile cues in order to enhance a sense of presence and immersion in this situation. For generalized anxiety or disorder, in general, the use of relaxation techniques, some of the I mentioned before. Worry exposure, when in worry exposure, you do repeated and prolonged exposure to fearful images or what we are worried about. So in these images, we include strategies that we would would use to reduce anxiety and cope with the situation. Problem solving, this means take a systematic action to solve a problem that we're worried about. Disruption, a variety of disruption techniques can be helpful for worries that do not lend themselves easily to cognitive therapy or problem solving. Mindfulness practice, I mentioned before, is an attitude of simply witnessing the ongoing stream of your thoughts and feelings in the present moment without judgment. It's originated in Buddhist meditation practice. Lifestyle and personality changes, of course, it have to do with stress management, with increased downtime, regular exercise, eliminating stimulants, and also healthy nutrition. And For obsessive compulsive disorder, we use relaxation training, exposure response prevention, lifestyle, personality changes that I mentioned before. Post-traumatic stress is very complicated and multifaceted. It contains all this and also imagery, rescripting, support groups. Imagery rescripting, when it happens when a therapist asks you to revisualize a situation that was traumatic when you was a child or adolescent, but from the standpoint of being an empowered, strong adult capable of handling the situation. So, for instance, if you were physically abused as a child, you would imagine going back to the original situation as your adult self rather than as a child, and then confronting the abuser and dealing with the abuser in a strong, empowered way. Finally, eye movement desensitization and reprocessing is very helpful in enabling these victims to retrieve and work with, through memories, and this technique is used to accelerate the course of therapy. Remember that all these mental health issues are not a sign of weakness, because more or less all in our lives we have experienced one of anxiety disorder, in general one of mental health disorder, and anxiety is something that is part of me, but it's not who I am. So thank you very much for your attention, and I'm very willing and eager to discuss with you and interact. You can leave your questions, and I'm ready for discussion.
Thank you so much, ma'am, for your rich content presentation, which can impact our knowledge seekers surely. After your presentation, I hope our knowledge seeker can learn something new, which was our only intention. Learn and grow together, IGP knowledge seeker. Once again, thank you so much, ma'am, for your presentation. Now, ma'am, it's time for our question answer session, which is the one more valuable part of our regular webinar. Honorable ma'am, please stay with us. After a short video, we will back in our session part 2, which is the question answer part. Dear IGP knowledge seeker, please ask your question in the comment box as much as you want to know from our speaker. Thank you. After question answer, we have a webinar certification and online quiz competition. Dear IGP knowledge seeker, please ask your question in the comment box as much as you want to know from our speaker. Thank you. After question answer, we have a webinar certification and online quiz competition. Welcome back, ma'am. Welcome back to our participant. Dear IGP knowledge seeker, please ask your question in the comment box as much as you want to know from our speaker. Thank you. After question answer, we have a webinar certification and online quiz competition. Dear IGP knowledge seeker, please ask your question in the comment box as much as you want to know from our speaker. Thank you. After question answer, we have a webinar certification and online quiz competition. Ma'am, our first question is from Liutrim. Do anxious thought improve our brain or spiritual life? Thank you in advance,
Mhm.
ma'am.
Yes, I think it's a brilliant question. As I mentioned before, anxiety is our body's natural threat response system. So when our brain believes that it's in danger, it sends out a series of signals to the body, resulting in what we call a fight or flight response. I mentioned also that anxiety has three main components: emotional, physical, and cognitive. And for instance, when we have an exam, then we may have heart palpitations or bodily sensation or sweating or tightness in the stomach. You know that all experts say that this is not bad. Normal levels of anxiety that could have, for instance, low levels of fear, apprehension, mild sensations, these have to do with improvement. Actually, they improve our attention, according to studies. This improves our problem solving and motivates us to work harder towards a goal. Or it's something that warns us about potential threat. For example, I mentioned the case of the upcoming exam. If we have anxiety about an upcoming exam, this will likely leads us to prepare fully. And the anxiety is something which becomes creative here. On the other hand, now, if becomes chronic or there are clinical levels of anxiety, then we go to the other hand of the spectrum. Because their anxiety levels rise and this can decrease performance, they can cause impairments, they can drain us, as our participant says, that can drain us. When we know, when can we know that we have crossed over into this zone? When anxiety disorders are characterized by persistent worry. Worry is a component of anxiety disorders. When we worry excessively about the situation, when we have extreme avoidance of anxiety-provoking situations, and all the symptoms can cause distress, can impair daily function. Um, for instance, I can mention some cases of this. If we say, for instance, I can't do this all the time, we have negative thinking patterns that I mentioned before, or problem magnification all the time. I will fail, I'm not good enough. If our thoughts are out of control, if all the time we try to avoid some fearful situations. So the answer is yes, that if we talk about low levels of fear, anxiety is something normal to our lives, it's inevitable, and sometimes it can be creative because as before can motivate us to work harder. But if this crosses the line, and if we talk about high levels of anxiety, then we talk about clinical symptoms, and this has to do with anxiety disorder. So it's a disorder that needs to be treated appropriately through a comprehensive integrated approach I mentioned before. I'm not supporting only medicalized interventions. I suggest always evidence-based treatments and holistic approach I mentioned before.
Thank you so much, ma'am, for your answer. Ma'am, our next question is from King Web. Ma'am Rania, what is the relationship between stress and anxiety?
Yes, we could say that more or less stress is what is any burden that we place on our brain or physical body. Any event, any incident that makes us feel frustrated or nervous, any of this incident can trigger stress. On the other hand, anxiety is a feeling of fear, feeling of worry or unease. Maybe anxiety seems that as a reaction to stress, But anxiety, it can happen without any obvious trigger. So this is the difference. Stress is usually after a specific event, after a specific incident, but anxiety is something general which maybe can be unrealistic. For instance, I have anxiety about what will happen this night. I don't know what is happening. It's my unrealistic fear. So this is the difference usually. Stress has to do with specific event that makes us frustrated or nervous. On the other hand, anxiety is a worry or fear that maybe has no obvious trigger about this. But the symptoms are the same. We feel tense, we feel nervous, we're unable to relax, we feel that the world is slowing down or speeding up. So more or less, I think the symptoms are the same. Yes.
Thank you so much, ma'am, for your answer. Ma'am, there is no more questions from our participants. So once again, thank you so much, ma'am, for your time in IGP. We have learned a lot from you with new topic. It will add some value to our day-to-day activity along with our academic and professional growth. Honorable ma'am, hope to see you again with a new topic and a new date. Thank you, ma'am. Take care.
Thank you very much for this wonderful opportunity. Thank you. Thank you.
Welcome, ma'am. Honorable ma'am, before we move to the next, if you want to leave this studio, you can.
Thank you.
Dear IGP Knowledge Seeker, it's time for the webinar certification process, the most attractive and powerful part of our regular webinar. After a short video, we will start our webinar certification. After webinar certification, we have an online quiz competition and quiz certification. Dear IGP Knowledge Seeker, it's time for the webinar certification process, the most attractive and powerful part of our regular webinar. After a short video, we will start our webinar certification. After webinar certification, we have an online quiz competition and quiz certification. Certification process. Visit www.eduagp.com. Please make sure your presence on our website. Find a running session and get enrolled. After watching completing part 1, move to the next with the learning test passing mark 80% if passed. Back to the course again to download your certificate. If you fail to retake the quiz, download your certificate in PDF or JPG. For your attention, I am going to share the procedure again. Visit www.eduagp.com. Please make sure your presence on our website. Find a running session and get enrolled. After watching completing part 1, move to the next with the learning test passing mark 80% if passed. Back to the course again to download your certificate if you fail to retake the quiz. Download your certificate in PDF or JPG. Dear IGP Narasik, it's time for the most engaging part of this webinar, which is an online quiz competition, which is our regular webinar activity. We change a few process on online quiz competition. Note that after life, no one can participate. Now, time for the online quiz competition. To join the online quiz competition properly, please follow my instruction carefully. Now, time for the online quiz competition. To join the online quiz competition properly, please follow my instruction carefully. Visit www.eduagp.com, sign up or sign in. Without this, you cannot join live quiz competition anymore. Browse the live quiz button or given link. Find a session name and join with your logged website or user account. Click join and wait for a few minutes for others to join. Enjoy an online quiz competition. After the quiz, we will issue certificate for top 10 as previously, which you can find on our official Facebook page and group Institute of Global Professional. After a short video, we will start our quiz session. With 25 people, we are going to start our quiz session right now. First question is, what is some method of overcoming text anxiety? Is it option 1 or option 2? Option 1 is the right answer. 100% people are right here. Our next question is, what is some method of overcoming text anxiety? Is it option 1 or option 2? Option 2 is the right answer. 11% people are right here. Our next question is, use physically technique to assist someone overcoming excessive anxiety. Is it option 1 or option 2? Option 2 is the right answer. 82% people are right here. Our next question is, how is negotiating anxiety compared to overcoming a fear of flying? Is it option 1 or option 2? Option 2 is the right answer. 79% people are right here. Our next question is the least helpful strategy for overcoming text anxiety is to. Is it option 1 or option 2? Option 2 is the right answer. 41% people are right here. Our next question is what is the key to overcoming your anxiety associated with speaking publicly? Is it option 1 or option 2? Option 2 is the right answer. 61% people are right here. Our next question is when we are overcoming anxiety, is best to do this in small steps. Is it true or false? Option 1 is the right answer. 63% people are right here. Our next question is experience is one way to start the process for overcoming communication anxiety. Is it true or false? Option 1 is the right answer. 94% people are right here. Our second last question of the session is experience is one way to start the process of overcoming communication anxiety. Is it option 1 or option 2? Option 1 is the right answer. 100% people are right here. Our last and final question of the session is overcoming restraint behavior by the client as the level of anxiety raised in response to discuss of painful issues. Is it option 1 or option 2? Option 2 is the right answer. 95% people are right here. Congratulations to our online quiz competition winner captain. Congratulations again. We will take a few minutes for finalizing the result. After that, we will issue our online quiz competition certificate on official Facebook page and group Institute of Global Professional. Congratulations to our online quiz competition winner captain. Congratulations again. We will take a few minutes for finalizing the result. After that, we will issue our online quiz competition certificate on official Facebook page and group Institute of Global Professional. Congratulations to our online quiz competition winner captain. Congratulations again. We will take a few minutes for finalizing the result. After that, we will show online Kushman certificate on official Facebook page and group Institute of Global Professional. At the end of our session, we can say properly feed your skill. Never stop learning, cause life never stop teaching us. Be happy, stay safe. See you again and again. We want your participation in every program. If you want to live a happy life, try to go, not the people or things. Albert Einstein. Before I start, hit the like button. Again, want to thank all IGP knowledge seekers for your active knowledge seeking. See you in the next session. Thank you.